Sawadee Ka. Good afternoon and welcome to the National Institute of Development Administration, or NIDA. I would also like to take this opportunity to welcome all of our online audience who are watching live right now. My name is Farida Waller and I will be your host for today's event. As we begin, I would like to take a moment to remind everyone that this event will be broadcasted live on various social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Please feel free to share the live feed from our Facebook page, The Nation Thailand. Today's event is a joint collaboration between NIDA, The Nation, and Asia News Network, or ANN. The program is scheduled to run until 4:30 p.m. In response to feedback received during our pre-registration, we have modified the format of today's event to better cater our international audience, which include honorary members of embassies, trade and businesses, and media representatives, including the Straits Times Singapore, Nikkei Japan, Xinhua China, Central News Agency Taiwan, The Voice of Vietnam, The Guardian from the United Kingdom, Jiji Press Japan, and the Mainichi Japan, among many others. As such, we have dedicated the majority of our time to a single in-depth session. This will also allow more time for our audience to pose questions to the representatives of political parties. We hope you find today's event informative and engaging, and we thank you all for joining us today at NIDA. Before we begin our discussion, it is my honor to introduce our esteemed guest, Associate Professor Dr. Sombat Kusumawali, Vice President for Academic and International Affairs at NIDA. Following the opening speech, we will be conducting a group photo session and presenting gifts to our guest of honor. Dr. Sombat, please. Please join me in giving him a warm round of applause.
All right, Sawadee Krap. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this significant meeting on Prime Minister candidate debate in English and meet the heads of strategist teams on Thailand's general election, and to have the opportunity to speak to you today about the significance of this election for Thailand's future. As we all know, Thailand has been through a great deal of disruptions and change over the past years that have left many people feeling disillusioned and uncertain about the future. But today, as we gather here to discuss the direction of the country through vision from all of you, I believe that we can all feel a sense of hope and optimism for the future of Thailand. The significance of this election for Thailand cannot be overstated. It is a very crucial moment in Thailand's history and a chance for people of Thailand to move towards a stronger and more stable future, both economically and politically. At the heart of this election is the need for good governance, transparency, and accountability. These are the foundations upon which any successful democracy must be built. And they are essential if Thailand is to achieve its full potential as a modern and prosperous nation. But good governance is not enough on its own. Thailand also needs to build a strong and stable economy, one that can provide jobs, opportunities, and prosperity for all its citizens. And this is where the results of this election are particularly significant. With the election of our representative and a new government, Thailand has the opportunity to chart a new course towards economic growth and social development, one that is based on sound economic and social development policies, sound investment in infrastructure, and a commitment to creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Of course, there will be challenges along the way, but with the right leadership, the right policies, and the right mindset, I believe that Thailand can overcome this challenge and emerge as a strong, more prosperous, and more stable nation. At NIDA, the National Institute of Development Administration, we NIDA have provided people wisdom for sustainable development as our role as a leading advanced higher education institute for this country. So let us all take heart from this election and let us work together to build a brighter future for Thailand. One that is based on good governance, economic growth together with economic stability, social progress together with social security, and a commitment to sustainable progress and prosperity for all. Ladies and gentlemen, looking forward for our brighter future of our beloved country. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Please remain on stage. I would now like to welcome our guest of honor to join the photo session on stage as well. Please welcome Kun Varawut Silpa-archa from Thai Pattana Party. Kun Kiat Sittheeamorn from Democrat Party or Phac Pracharath. Dr. Thirachai Phuvanatnaranubala from Palang Pracharath Party. Kun Tidarat Yingcharoen from Thai Sang Thai Party. Dr. Veerayooth Kanchoochat from Move Forward Party or Phak Kaw Klai. Kun Voranai Vanijaka from Chat Pattana Kla Party. And I would also like to invite our moderators, Associate Professor Dr. Aswin Netpokael, and Kun Pana Jantara Viroth, Editor at Asia News Network. While we're taking the photo session, I would also like to remind everyone again that our event will be broadcasted live on various social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Please feel free to share the live feed from our Facebook page, The Nation Thailand. Furthermore, the objective of this event is to provide updates on the policies of parties running election and their potential impacts on the international community. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So while now we will have to prepare for our next session, so please stay tuned while we prepare the stage.
The Nation and National Institute of Development Administration, or NIDA, present Thailand's General Election Debate. The only English-speaking stage for the major players to present their direction, ambition, and vision, give the candidates a platform to interact with international residents, diplomats, and other members of international communities. Where will Thailand stand on the world stage with the new government? Saturday, April 29, 2023, from 2 to 4 p.m. at NIDA. Open for public. Please scan the QR code to join the event. The Nation and National Institute of Development Administration, or NIDA, present Thailand's General Election Debate. The only English-speaking stage for the major players to present their direction, ambition, and vision, give the candidates a platform to interact with international residents, diplomats, and other members of international communities. Where will Thailand stand on the world stage with the new government? Saturday, April 29, 2023, from 2 to 4 p.m. at NIDA. Open for public. Please scan the QR code to join the event. The Nation and National Institute of Development Administration, or NIDA, present Thailand's General Election Debate. The only English-speaking stage for the major players to present their direction, ambition, and vision, give the candidates a platform to interact with international residents, diplomats, and other members of international communities. Where will Thailand stand on the world stage with the new government? Saturday, April 29, 2023, from 2 to 4 p.m. at NIDA. Open for public. Please scan the QR code to join the event. The Nation and National Institute of Development Administration, or NIDA, present Thailand's General Election Debate.
Main event of the day, the in-depth discussion on various topics. For this session, we are honored to welcome Associate Professor Dr. Asawin Netpokeo, Assistant to the President of NIDA, and Kun Phana Chantara Viroth, Editor at Asian News Network, or ANN, who will be moderating the discussion. Dr. Asawin brings a wealth of experience and knowledge from his role at NIDA, while Kun Phana's expertise in journalism and current affairs will undoubtedly bring valuable insights to the discussion. Please join us on the stage again. Kun Varawut Silpa-archa from Thai Party. Kun Kiat Sittheeamorn from Democrat Party or Pracharath. Dr. Thirachai Phuvanatnaranubala from Palang Pracharath Party. Kun Tidarat Yingcharoen from Thai Party. She's currently on the way. Dr. Veerayooth Kanchoochat from Move Forward Party or Pak Gao Klai. And Kun Voranai Vanijaka from Pattana Party. Please join me again in giving them a warm round of applause as they now take the stage. I will now give the stage to Dr. Asawin and Kun Phana.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all to this main event. This is a busy election time, and we would like to thank the nation and NIDA for initiating this English language national election debate. Well, we all appreciate your presence despite a very busy schedule. You know, we are in the peak of the election campaigns, but today is an occasion that you don't have to compete in the campaign campaign promises and popular political rhetoric. This is an occasion to look beyond the election promises which are well documented toward more fundamental issues which are of interest to the international community. There are a lot of issues to go through, and with your permission, we have, prior to this, tailor-made some questions so that we will save time and we can cover all the topics. But first of all, I'd like to welcome Kun Tida to the panel. May I start with the political aspect of the election? I think a lot of people in the international community, the embassies, the diplomat, the foreign business people would like to see whether Thailand would have a smooth political transition after the election so that we will be able to get to where we want to go to. So the main question for this round will be whether the new government will be sufficiently stable enough to carry out the policy that they have promises. This election is another of Thailand further democratic transition, and the stake is very high, as Professor Sombat has said. The four major players have offered some clear choices for the voters to decide on May the 14th. The four are the offer of landslide win from Thirachai party. Palang Pracharath has offered to be a compromiser. Move Forward party have offered to amend the Article 112, which they see as part of the instability of the society. And United Thai Nation Party has offered itself as a stabilizer, a continuation of the stability under the current Prime Minister. I'd like to ask the smaller party, because they don't have a stake in this, Kun Varawut, Kun Voranai, and Kun Tida as representative of a smaller party, maybe a little bit more neutral. How should Thai voter evaluate these 4 or 5 suggestions of political stability? Kun Varawut, please.
Well, I always lucky one to get the first. The first shot at questions. Well, I believe that it is only natural that during an election we have 2 big polars, or as you suggested, we have you mentioned 4 big parties. We're talking about the stability of the government after the 14th of May. One thing I learned is that despite all the mumbo jumbo or whatever's happening, Thai politics remains more robust than one think. Take the previous government, for example. I remember on the 24th of March, 2019, people said, oh, this government probably lasts 6 months. And, somehow that 6 months turned into a year turned into 2, and before you knew it, it lasted almost 4 years. So I think after this election, a lot of people are coming out to vote. This is one of the most anticipated, the most, we had a lot of reactions and commitment from every parties, both on the private sectors, the people, and all the political parties. So I think after the election, whether it's the landslide or from the PPP party or the Move Forward or the UTN by the Prime Minister, somehow at the end of the day, people will be the one who decide who gets to be the majority. And as for smaller parties like ours, we don't get to choose, actually. We are the one chosen. So I think we will be the one to stabilize the next government.
As part of the coalition in either way?
Coalition or opposition, it would lead to the stability of the government. And I think in order to do a constructive politics from now on, be in the opposition doesn't mean that you have to be a destructive opposition. You can be an well, constructive opposition, which would prolong and help the operation of the government, lead to the betterment of our country.
If maybe just a follow-up, if the past dictates the future, as you said, the government will survive regardless. So it doesn't really matter of the fall. Whatever you choose, it will be a stabilizer on itself.
No. Well, it depends on how the mathematical equation takes place after the 14th of May. It could be 1 + 3 + 4 + 5, 2 + 3 + 5, or whatever. But we've seen some in the past a very stable, very, very stable, and we thought it's going to last forever. Unfortunately, it lasts just over a year, and then something happened, caused to the collapse of that government, and it didn't last. So in Thai politics, everything is not as it seems. Sometimes it seems very stable, and then poof, just gone in a few seconds. But sometimes it seems wobbly, and it has been wobbling all the way into the end of the term. So, well, it remains to be seen, but I have confidence that after the 14th of May, we will have a stable government.
Thank you. Kun Voranai, how do you see this play out?
Well, political stability in Thailand is not tricky. It's pretty evident in and of itself. I mean, we thought we would have stability after General Prem stepped down and we embraced democracy. We didn't, because the coup d'etat happened. We thought we would have stability after Thirachai won an unprecedented 2 terms, second term by a landslide. It didn't happen. We had another coup d'etat. We thought after the red shirts, the yellow shirts, and all the different shirts battled it out in the street, and finally we had a full election with a government that has the mandate from the people. We thought there would be stability. It didn't happen. Guess what? Another coup d'etat. So looking into the future, one thing we have to admit to ourselves, there is no stability as long as there's a destabilizer ready to step in at any time. So that's the truth of the current situation in Thai politics. Now, as to what the people should do, the best thing the people can do is to vote according to your principles, to your conscience, to which way do you want Thailand to see marching forward into the future. However, we also have to keep in mind there's a reason why there have been talks over these many months about different equations and formulas of how to form a government. And those equations and those formulas are for many different reasons, one of which is also possibly to prevent another coup d'etat. And therefore, in Thailand, political result is not the only thing that will determine our future. There is such a thing as the deep state, which we have to be accounted for. And I think in the long term, the only way we can negate or kick the deep state out of this equation is some way, somehow, there's an overwhelming mandate from the people to say that, leave us alone. Let the people decide. Thank you.
But maybe I can follow up. In the last maybe 10, 15 years, the destabilizing has been taken place outside parliament, basically street protests. Lastly, with the yellow, red shirt, this is the big instability. How do you
I would say every protest that ever happened in Thailand, as long as they are peaceful, they are not a destabilizer. They are in the spirit of democracy. Protests in the street are in the spirit of democracy. It's the basic fundamental of human rights that we can and should take to the streets when we are faced with injustice and tyranny. And while I may not agree with everything the protesters call for, if I'm going to be a politician in a democracy, even if I don't agree with them, I had better protect their rights to demonstrate and to protest. So the people are not the destabilizers. The only color shirt that is the destabilizers is the color green.
Thank you. Kun Tida from Thai Sang Thai, please.
I think the stability of the government depends on a few things. One is in terms of the coalition setup. there are a lot of variations, a lot of options of how things can happen. I don't think anyone who's sitting here is able to actually predict what the coalition will look like. So that really depends. There are many parties who come out and said, you know, if they become the government, there will no more be a coup d'etat. There are other parties come out and say, you know, they're not sure. So I think that really depends on a coalition. Secondly, it depends on the margin. I think we saw from many governments previously, even the last one, in terms of how the margin looks like in every vote. There are people moving parties, there are people shifting stances. Even when they are still in the same party, they still raise their hands, the MPs, for the other party. So that really depends on how the margin looks like. And I think, you know, if you, according to what you were saying, all the numbers matter. In terms of even you have smaller parties, smaller numbers, that still matters in terms of how the margin will look like. Would that be a narrow margin or that will be a big margin? But lastly, what's really important is in terms of rule of law. I think, you know, there discussion about how this will play out in terms of the respect for the rule of law, in terms of, you know, whether a lot of things, whether elections itself and also how the government later on, whether they will be very straightforward in terms of how they operate their businesses. If there will be rule of law, I think, you know, people respect that rule of law, people respect how things are being conducted, and there won't be so much or so many complaints. But if there are a lot of things that are not very straightforward, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people would not be happy, and that could cause the instability that can come out. So I think firstly, coalition, secondly, margin, and lastly, in terms of respect for the rule of law.
Do you expect things will be wrapped up fairly quickly after election, or it will drag on and provide a vacuum in the political setup in this election?
Again, I think that depends on the numbers, but looks like this election is very, I think according to Professor Thitinan, most quoted quote that everyone was saying, it's the most consequential elections in terms of how this would mean for a lot of people. I think there will be a lot of thinking in terms of how political parties would take time to actually consider whether there would be the variation of the setup of the coalition itself, or whether, you know, what would be the things they're willing to compromise, what would be the things that they signal in the long term in terms of how these elections and the outcomes will look like.
And how do you expect the Senate to react, or it depends on the numbers?
I think the Senate themselves, as we have shown a track record, they're quite unanimous in terms of how they voted. But now we've seen more and more of the senators who came out and actually disagreed with the majority. We have a few, more and more coming out. We can only hope that they will vote and they will only agree with the voice of the people. That's the only thing that we hope in democratic society.
Thank you, thank you. May I come to Kun Thirachai? The Palang Pracharath has proposed itself as a compromiser. What does it mean? What does it mean to particularly to the Thai people? What does it mean?
I have to start by saying that for the next Thai government, stability is paramount. I say so because I've been following the economy of the West closely, and I could see a perfect storm building up in both the United States and in Europe. It is showing its force, affecting various banks in both areas, and it is just only the beginning. Not only that, there is a backdrop of a Cold War going on between the US and China in terms of trade, in terms of investment, as well as a problem developing in the environment. The previous three cheap cost of money, cheap labor from China, and cheap cost of energy. All these are going to change. Of course, part of that is because of the result of the war in Ukraine. So in this kind of environment, we need a very strong and stable government. And in my opinion, the ability of the next Prime Minister to unite the hearts and mind of the Thai people, or the lack of it, is going to make or break the Thai economy. In this respect, we have to look back at the 8 years of General Prayut. And I have to say that it has been 8 years of selling himself as a choice between the two divisions, between the two factions. And unfortunately, we have to ask ourselves, what price did we have to pay for all these 8 years? In my opinion, in terms of economic development, it put Thailand into an hourglass, trapped in time by a government organized more or less by tycoons, by business people that work through the hands of the civil servants. And this is not healthy. This kind of government policy, driven mainly by the civil servants, result mainly in policies that aim the benefits more towards the big businesses and perhaps not enough to the people. All this needs to change. And the only way you can change is to have someone who can unite. And if you look at the potential candidates who really have the potential to be the next Prime Minister, I see only General Pravit, the leader of my party, as the only choice who can unite everybody. And he is a man who does not consider himself as a Mr. Know-it-all. He is a man who is prepared to work with every faction. And he is a man that I think that I will recommend the voters to have a look at.
But stabilizer or compromiser, as you said, is it mean not to do anything, not to make decision? Oftentimes the reporters would ask General Pravit this and that, and he said, "Oh, I don't know. I wait for me," and he doesn't answer. He not so accountable.
But that is before he has this strong economic team.
Oh. Okay.
So I think the policies and the agendas as set up by Palang Pracharath Party would give enough confidence to the voters.
Okay. So you think Kun Pravit would act as a divide the spoil, manage the interests of different groups of people better than most of the Prime Minister candidates? Is that?
I think so. The past 8 years, we had witnessed, setting up of shipping containers, blocking people from advancing to the government house, or conducting policies, listening mainly only to the civil servants without having any input from the general public. I think that needs to change, and General Pravit will be someone who could do that.
Okay, thank you. We are also into intergeneration change politically. Two tracks, if you translate the intergeneration change, is that in many ways the Move Forward Party is younger, as all the polls have dictated. The Move Forward has a table for the amendment, proposed for the amendment 112, along with Thirachai Party, who unfortunately is not here today. So politically, the dividing lines seem to be quite clear. If I could ask Kun Veerayooth, how do we manage this, the country? It may be a political rivalry, political conflict, but as voter, as people who doesn't want to see country breaking up into different camps that and the road is not a return to stability. How do you see this? How should we manage this as society? Thank you, please.
Thank you. I think first of all, the term stabilities here in Thai context is quite problematic, isn't it? It's neither neutral nor even pro-democracy. So if the stability means everyone should accept the Senate power to determine the Prime Minister, to accept the misrule of law, then what the purpose of having such stabilities? So I mean, we, the Thai people and international communities should focus more on the fundamental universal principles of democracy, human rights, and work collectively to support that thing, to support the role of the parliament, electoral representative, to discuss sensitive issues in a mature way. That's our standpoint. But for the Move Forward Party to be part and parcels of the coalition government, we have our motto. That is, have a big dream, but move gradual steps. So we have to dream big, because it's actually there are so many things that should have done in the past decade. The things like regulatory guillotine, liberalizations, decentralizations, you name it. All the things, and when I'm speaking in English, it even make it more outdated. They should have been done in the past decade. So we propose this thing to be done now. And for one thing, the party's executive board are in their 40s, something that could bridge the gap between the younger generation and the more senior ones. For example, me and our executive grew up in the analog world, but we live and work in the digital world. So there's a potential to bridge the gap. So I think we have our big dream, but we know that we have to move gradual steps and work with the others.
But Move Forward has no experience in government. Do you think you need some time to participate as a minor coalition partner before you make some major moves?
Experience could be either positive or negative. If everyone has the experience, why regulatory guillotine, liberalizations, even decentralization haven't done properly before? So you may need some fresh faces, some new forces to get this thing done.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Kun Kiat, the Democrat Party is the oldest. Democrat Party has seen it all. How do we deal with the intergeneration change? Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you, Nation and Nida, for organizing this event, members of the press corps, and also representatives from embassies. Thank you. Hope you will enjoy this session as much as I do, speaking from here, the podium. Your question. Are we unstable? If I use my experience as Vice President of Liberal International, which is the organization from 100 countries, comprising 140 to 160 political parties that are either liberal or Democrat. Thailand is super stable. Okay, everything is comparative. Sometimes we see ourselves from inside and not comparing ourselves from the rest of the world. If we call Thailand unstable, maybe another 100 countries among the world community are unstable.
But we are stable, but we are not reaching the potential that we should be. No?
First of all, you said that we are the oldest party. No, not true. We are the only party that has the longest history. We don't use the word old. Old can mean obsolete. We're still very relevant and carrying a lot of weight among the society and Thai politics, and also regional politics and world politics. Okay? Democrat Party is the only party that is a member of Liberal International. You can check. Okay? And they only accept you because of your conduct, not because of what you said. So history means something. Okay? Now, we've seen it all. Yes, we have from generation to generations, and all parties today comprises of all generations, including move forward. Because if you look at the oldest member or candidates, they're not that young either. Okay, so don't think of that party as the young party, and we are the old party. The youngest members of our party are, young Democrats, still studying at universities. Okay, now talking about Thai politics, we as well as many other countries, we have to find our own way. We cannot be compared to other countries and how they find their way in developing their democracy. To say this is not being arrogant, but because each country will have its own way determined by the people, and that's democratic value. Same thing as what happened in the United States. Belgium, at one point in time, they have 16 governments in 2 years. You call that unstable democracy? No, we don't. So I think we need to very well define what we mean as a stable democracy or not.
But why are we disrupted by coup every now and then?
Okay, I'm glad you asked about that. Okay, the last 4 years, no coup. Before that, we have many coups. The coup in Thailand can be very different from the coup that you experience in other countries, especially in many countries in Africa. Okay, I can cite all that. The condition and the reason for taking over can be different. We all, I think all political parties here, disapprove of coup. We disapprove. We disagree. We don't like it. But sometimes, if you look at all the reasons that they use after they stage the coup, is because some political parties also creating a condition for them to take action that we don't like to see. Okay? So political parties are accountable to what happened in our country, good and bad. Saying that is not to approve any coup at all. I disagree with the coup. We object the coup. Okay? And many times it's proven already that having a government, a transition government after the coup is not in the best interest of the country either. The performance in running the government during that special occasion has always been less than desired. Okay? So that I would say. Thailand politics is always colorful. Okay? Colorful. No doubt about it. And I would not wish anyone, our observer, who are now watching very carefully and enjoyably, I hope, the running into elections, not to be too anxious to get to the destination while forgetting to enjoy the journey. Now, we always like Thai culture and Thai media, always like to push political parties to give them the end result, even before it's time. We will not do that, and we should not do that. It's not in the best interest of any political parties to say how the government would be like before the people have voted, the people have spoken. I think we must have this discipline. And I observe many elections in many countries in Asia and in Europe. It's only in Thailand that all media try to push everyone to say, who are you going to go to bed with? And for how long? It's not in our best interest to do that, okay?
But you must have scenarios in your mind.
But we will not say it because we want to respect the votes of the people. we will not fall into that trap. Because Thai culture, we love to go to fortune teller a lot. Okay? And we forget how many times the fortune teller tell all the wrong story. It's never accurate. Okay? I think in the election game, we must respect the people. We must respect the voters. And we should not jump to any conclusion before we get to the point where the people have spoken.
Thank you, thank you. We will have a further session on foreign policy as well as economics and so on, but I like to break with the normal seminars or conference that the audience asks the question at the end, and often there's not enough time for you to participate. So I'd like to open now for the audience to ask questions on this topic of politics. Not any other topics. If you have questions now to ask any of the panelists, can you raise your hand, and then there will be a microphone, and if you can state your name. Questions? Any questions? Yes. ได้ขอไมโครโฟนหน่อยได้ไหมฮะ ขอไมโครโฟนน่ะขอไมโครโฟนน่ะนี่นะเนี่ยแม่ถอนกันเอาไมโครโฟนไปให้ดิขอบคุณครับขอบคุณ
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pangwan Pumpirun. I'm a 10th grade student from KMIDS, and as I have been listening to all the visions, I can see that there will be a big burden on economic budget of the government. And my question to all the party is that, what is your position on having people age 15 and above to vote, because this is also our future?
Okay, yes or no? Go ahead, please. Kun Kiat.
I think it should be considered, but
why? Why?
It should be considered, but how to get to the result and decision, we should think of a formula for that. You know, if we are certain that all 15-year-old is as mature as you are, then there shouldn't be any objection. But you should tell and make sure that the older people agree that you have the maturity it takes. Now, if you look at the example of most countries in the world, 15th, I have yet to see, because they're still too busy trying to graduate. They're still too busy trying to be raised by the parents. Unlike me, I work from the age of 14. Okay, I'm not raised by the parents, but it's okay. So different people have, you know, each society has different maturity. But if you really feel strongly about that, you should work together with your generation to come up with a collective proposal so that it could be considered by the society as a whole.
I appreciate your sentiment and I applaud your willingness to participate in the election system. But I have to be honest with you, straight up, 15 is too young. Learn, grow, and see what you can do when you become 18. However, I do support the idea of having a youth parliament as a shadow parliament for these people up here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I prefer to stick to 18, but also welcome, you know, the younger people to have a more active voice.
Veerayooth.
I must admit that I admire your passion to drive this country.
Thank you.
I feel inspired by the fact that, well, the next generation is going to be, you know, like you, running the country. However, in order for a 15-year-old to vote, I think we might as well put it to vote for the whole country. Thirachai Pattana, we are hoping to come up with a new constitution that truly reflects the need of the people by setting up a constitution drafting committee, the CDC, like what we used to do in the 98 constitution. Now in the CDC, it comprises of various people of all ages, even students in universities, secondary, or primary. Now in that CDC, your voice can be heard and listened and act upon. So I think I have no objection if, I do agree with Kun Kiat that if all 15 years old have shared the same ideas and vision as you are, I have no objection at all. But let's see what the CDC comes up with, what CDC, the entire country feels about your idea. But if not, our party is more than welcome to have you as member of ours.
Kun Tidarat.
I think it's a very interesting proposal. I think the debate is about the age of rationality, in which actually different countries have different age of rationality, in which you're allowed to drive, in which you're allowed to drink, or do other legal conducts. In each country is very different. And we at Thai Sang Thai Party, we actually propose for students to be able to graduate earlier. We propose to reduce the study time for the students to be able to graduate a few years earlier, because we recognize the maturity of the new generation. But for sure, I think for now, I think it is too early to consider it. But for sure, I think in the future, should we, move towards the track of having more mature, younger generation, I think that would be very interesting. For now, I think there are a few options that you can do. There's a youth council in which, a lot of people participate in, and a youth government or the youth parliament in which many parties have proposed as well. I think that would be very interesting to have someone like you who's here to listen to us and also propose your policies. Thank you.
Good morning.
One of the policies of the Move Forward Party is to propose to establish the youth parliament. So on the assumption that the Thai youth supposed to have the different issues, different interests, apart from the normal parliament. So that's one of our policy.
What age have you set?
From 15.
15.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I make some just minor correction? Current parliament, the one that was dissolved, we also have youth wing, okay? But it's different from what you are asking for, is to have the ability to vote. I think all parties encourage young people to participate in politics. Democrat Party was the first because we are the longest standing history. So we have youth wing since the beginning of time, okay? So welcome, but appreciate your enthusiasm.
Any more questions on this session?
Thank you.
Okay, when we go on, maybe I can ask Ajahn Aswin to take this session on.
Thank you, Kun Phana. It's a great honor to be with all of you here, and particularly this event for this audience, especially Thailand's foreign policy is of great interest. I think the viewers back home watching online would like to hear your answers as well. Well, for the past decades or so, the world has changed a lot, but Bangkok and Thailand seems to drift aimlessly in the sea of geopolitics. So my question to all the political parties and the representatives present here, what should be the foreign policy hallmark of next government, and what we will get out of your respective policies? So perhaps I'd like to start with Kun Veerayooth, please.
Thank you. I think if we ask most diplomats around the world, you consider Thailand foreign policy as what? They would say the bamboo diplomacy, right? The bamboo is always bending with the wind, never takes side, pragmatic, and adaptable for the sake of national survival. But we think the world has already changed. No one country can be the global hegemony now, or for the time being. It has been already a multipolar international system. Decoupling everywhere actually started with the EU and the US. And the global affairs also getting more complicated. In the Cold War, it may be about capitalism and versus communism, but no longer. Now we're talking about the details, such as the rise of the LGBT, regulation for a level playing field, how to cope with the rise of the tech firms. So things getting more into the nitty-gritties of the issues. So the Move Forward parties propose Thailand diplomatic direction to change from being a bamboo to a more issue-based. Issue-based diplomacy should be the future. Bamboo diplomacy is nation-based. For it avoid fear of taking sides with any major power at the cost of being an enemy with the others, but it no longer works in this complicated world. Issue-based, we mean we shall and should have a clear stance on the key issues. The human rights, regional cooperations, trade agreements, national sovereignties, stand up and speak up when the occasion arises. Not taking sides with any nations, but have a clear stand on the issues. And we think only this way will Thailand's voice get back to the global stage again. I think one of the examples would be the air pollution, PM 2.5. It's no longer a domestic issue. If we follow the bamboo diplomacy, we would never solve this issue. Because it's the biomass burnings involve a lot of countries, and it requires regional cooperations and decisions. So we need to use the best data we have to address the sources of the problems, propose the possible solutions with the clear pros and cons on any scenario, and reach a conclusion with the neighboring countries. I think we can learn from Singapore, the Pollution Act, that they act in cooperation with the other countries. But in a nutshell, the Move Forward Party would propose Thailand to change from the bamboo strategy to the more issue-based. Still not taking side with nation, but have to be clear on each issue.
Can just ask a follow-up? Your party leader is a graduate in international relations, Kun Pitha. If you are part of the next government, would he take a foreign minister position?
That's one of the possible positions. But you may ask Kun Kiat if he would disagree with me, because it still need to see if we respect the voters, then we may need to wait and see.
All right. So does your party come up with the name of the new diplomacy yet instead of bamboo diplomacy?
We call it the issue-based or the rule-based diplomacy.
Okay. Thank you, Kap. Kun Tidarat, Kap, please. Same question. Thai Party, yes.
I think Thailand's foreign policy should be based on three key principles. The first one is humanitarian basis. I think we've seen a lot of decisions being made in international votings, international stage, in which Thailand did not respect the humanity, did not respect the humanitarianism. What's happening in Russia, Ukraine, what's happening in Myanmar, what's happening in many countries, and a warm war between the United States and China. I think it should be based solely on humanitarianism in any decisions that Thailand makes. The second principle that I think is equally important is in terms of the economic benefits. I think we've seen the economic situation, the recession has been happening for a long time and is prolonging, especially after COVID-19. We think, there's a lot of things that Thailand's still recovering from, whether that being a lot of GDP being relied on tourism, and it still has not, bounced back to the point where it was before. So we should consider, in terms of any decisions we make, that would mean a good economic benefit for Thailand, because that's the first priority that we have for the people. But lastly, most importantly, I think Thailand should make decisions based on the best interests of the Thai people. A lot of people misunderstood the fact that, foreign policies and domestic policies are actually very clearly linked, and a lot of decisions being made, outside of your home, actually to serve the people inside of your home. So we think, any best interest of the Thai people should be considered, and not just bureaucratic system, not just any decisions only to make just because certain ministers or the prime minister would like to save face, or they want certain benefits that cannot trickle down to the people. So firstly, humanitarianism, secondly, economic benefits, and thirdly, best interest of the Thai people. Thank you.
May I just follow up on the second issue, the economic benefits. What would be done differently if Thai Sang Thai Party be part of the government coalition?
We think there are a few things that Thailand can compete on in order to bring money into the country. There are many mechanisms that Thailand can use to generate money in the country, but we still have to rely on the money, the investment, a lot of income that has to come from outside the country. Thai Sang Thai Party proposes that Thailand has to compete and focus on the key 3 strengths that Thailand already has. It's not wise to compete on something that you're not good at. Thailand is good at food, it's good at healthcare, it's good at tourism. So if we focus on these key things, we think it's much easier for Thailand to bounce back and to actually serve the best interests of the economy for the people.
Thank you. Kun Varawut kap, what should be the next foreign policy?
Well, there is a saying that keep your friends close, keep your enemy closer, but that shouldn't be our foreign policy. For Thirachai Pattana Party, we believe that keep your friends next door, keep the friendlies next door, and the unfriendlies, keep them far away. Because in a time of needs, you don't want to fight with your neighbors. I mean, you live in a house, people on the left, on the right, you don't want to get in a fight with, because when you leave home, you'll be worrying about your home all the time. What's my neighbors going to do to my country? For example, taking Myanmar, for example, they share thousands of kilometers of borders with Thailand. We don't want to worry about that. Let's not make friends next door to our west. To the east, we have Laos, we have Cambodia. Well, I mean, we don't want to make enemies with them neither. So in our point of view, we make friends next door, and we keep the unfriendlies out, and whatever it is, we make sure that our foreign policy would certainly, well, maximize the benefit of Thai people. I don't know if we're going to say left or right or whatever, but whatever the decision is, it's going to reflect on the well-being and the benefit of the entire 66 million population of Thailand. And when we talk about the conflicts in various places in the world, whether it's next door or whether it's thousands of miles away, I think we do respect how different countries have sensitivities and complexities in their own internal politics. We do respect that, but we do insist on a peaceful resolution. We disagree and we do not support in the use of violence or the act of aggression towards any other countries. And should Thailand be able to help, we do support the humanitarian side. For example, if there is something going on in Myanmar, we do support the refugees or whoever's trying to running over the border to seek peaceful and to seek safety in terms of humanitarian aid. We do agree with that, and we do not support violence or aggressions. So I think our foreign policy is keep friendlies next door and keep unfriendlies way, way away from us.
Thank you, Kun Varawut. Kun Thirachai,ครับผม
Well, I cannot speak for the party, so I will speak on a personal basis. I have to say I very much admire Kun Varawut's approach to foreign policy. Practical, beneficial, but at the same time, it's something that we can, all the Thai people can gather around this issue. In terms of foreign policy, I see 2 slots going forward. The first one is the problem among the 2 superpowers. That is going to be more and more difficult. The conflict will expand into more and more areas. Unfortunately, particularly the United States, I believe, will be pressuring a lot of the countries to take sides, to show the alliance towards one or the other. And I think that is something that should be resisted. The second issue, I think, is perhaps more delicate one, and that's the issue of the regional aspect. And here, we are aware that there are disputes within the region, particularly regarding the issues on South China Sea. But I believe that these kind of issues have to be resolved by people in the area, And I don't think we should welcome interference from abroad, interference from the group of something like NATO. So in this respect, crafting foreign policy for the next government is going to be very delicate. And in this issue, as I say, I quite admire Kun Varawut's start.
Okay, ครับ คุณวรนัยครับ geopolitics
I think one key word that our foreign policy must have, that we must be, is backbone. Have a backbone. Because if we don't stand for something, we'll fall for anything, and we end up being the doormat for everybody, which is what we are and have been for many years. But what should we stand for? Human rights, humanitarian. The problem in Myanmar, where's the human rights? That's where we stand on. Russia and Ukraine, what is human rights? That's where we stand on. And we work toward peace. Second issue is economic, geoeconomics. We export to China more than anywhere else, our number one partner. But we also run a huge trade deficit with China. We export to the US, number 3, but we run a trade surplus with the US. I'm not saying either China or US is better than any other. I'm just saying that Thailand must have the ability, the knowledge, and the capacity to negotiate on the world stage for the benefit of the Thai economy and the benefit of the Thai people. Why did Tesla go to Indonesia? Because the capability of its leaders. Why did Apple go to Vietnam? Because of the capability of its leaders. Why did Saudi Arabia open up to Thailand? Because we were lucky. The orange fell from the sky. Somlon.
After 30 years.
After 30 years. And lastly, we can't just be Thailand anymore. We live in a globalized world. Everybody have partners. Everybody have association. There's the European Union, there's NAFTA, there's OPEC, there's everywhere else and everyone else. We can't just be Thailand only in the world. There is this thing called ASEAN, but it's a dysfunctional family. We don't even have a LAN chat group in this family. ASEAN is 622 million people, home to the most resources in the world, whether in the sea or on land, home to one of the most lucrative trading routes in the world. We are so powerful, yet we don't know it. South China Sea doesn't belong to China or the US, it belongs to ASEAN. If we learn to participate as ASEAN, if the people of Southeast Asia may have an ASEAN passport, that may also perhaps combat the problem of refugees and human trafficking. Because not only will we have human rights, we will also have legal status. So 3 things, underlined by one thing: backbone, human rights, humanitarian, economic benefits, and let's do something with ASEAN to bring us forward into the next decade and the next decade and the next decade. Thank you.
Thank you คุณวรนัย ครับ คุณเกียรติครับ
I got one.
คุณเกียรติคุณ and the Democrat Party, what should be the policy if the next government come about?
Well, first of all, you call this a PM candidate debate. I thought you're going to ask, if I am the Prime Minister, what would I do? Sorry, but anyway, respecting your question. We must be, among the international community, we must be credible, we must be respectable, we must be honorable, and we must play our part as a valuable member of the international community in taking up the challenges the whole world is facing. That's the stand, okay? But I lived long enough to know that foreign policy in practice and theory are completely different. If you go back since the Rama V, we managed to survive as a country because of proactive diplomacy. Not reactive, not defensive, but by design, very proactive, clear strategy. That's how we survive. Now, following World War I, World War II, we start having multilateral organization. And that takes away the proactive side of many countries, Thailand included. And we became less proactive, but more reactionary, more defensive. And we are not advancing much in terms of our interests because of what we understood ourselves as limitation because of multilateral regime or international agreements, which is not correct. Okay, not always correct. So what do Democrat Party believe? I've seen for a fact with my own eyes, after all these long years in international arena, that all countries use their foreign policies to advance their own interests. If we don't get that in our head, we might be lost in the narrative that sounds pretty good for a democratic country, but in fact, the hidden agenda is behind it. So we must be smart. We must be ahead of the game. We must understand the game and play the game well. And we also must use our foreign policy to advance our interests, but in the way that will not be detrimental to the interests of other countries. Okay? So, I would say that if we are smart enough, we can design so many strategies based on our potentials to advance our interests with many countries in many regions in such a way that it will benefit our interests and their interests. I give you an example. When I was the president of Thailand Trade Representative, what I did, I went to Middle East. I negotiated with the country over there to set up a food security stockpile. It's good for Thailand because we produce food. It's good for Middle Eastern country because they need food. They have to buy food. And they have inconsistent supply. So in so doing, all sides benefit. That's the way we must be smart enough to understand ourselves and to use the foreign policy proactively to advance our interests and in the best interest of our partners in the world. So, proactive diplomacy is the key word, but we must also understand that everyone is using foreign policy and using international agreements to advance their interests, but not always respecting the norm and principle we adhere to.
Can I ask, since I think it's a feeling of many of the members of the international community that after the tenure of Kun Surin from the Democrat maybe 15 years ago, Thailand foreign policy has taken a slide. We appear to have become more inward, more less active. Why is this? It's not just the last 7 years. It's also the previous.
I would say that because of the multilateral regime and so many agreements, international agreements that we are party to, perhaps it's understood by many that we cannot do more than respecting and following the agreements, which for me is not correct. Okay? During Kun Surin's time, it's very proactive. Before that, it's very active. During my time, extremely proactive because I created new projects, new market, new area, new region of the world, and I went everywhere. I created opportunity of 150 billion baht worth of new projects in new countries in 3 years using the budget of about 30 million for traveling. That's it. Okay? So you have to be smart enough. Foreign affairs is not just about being nice, being respectable, but you must also understand what is the potential that we have in this country and not being utilized, and how we can advance that interest, and also in the best interest of our partner that we're negotiating with. I think never forget, we should never be self-serving interest, but we should be smart enough to identify an opportunity that is good for the country that we deal with.
Would you like to open for any audience would like to
ask any questions for this session, please? Any question on foreign policies?
Maybe what I said was
so clear. Okay. Okay, we go on. All right.
Please. Yeah.
So from my talks with foreign business people, particularly foreign investors as well as diplomats, Thailand appears to be losing its competitiveness. You know, we have slide in the IMD competitiveness index. We dropped from the 30th to 33 last year, and people are now questioning as investment is going into Vietnam, going to Indonesia, and now the Philippines also coming quite strong with the new president. So my question is what is our strength now, based on the party policies that you have advocated? What is a selling point of the country that that is facing aging society, high personal debt, and rising wages. Now, per Thai is going for 600 baht. But many of the policies that all of you have advocated has implication in many ways on the national competitiveness, that because of populist campaign, we have not been able to have an insight or understanding of how the policy affect this competitiveness of the country, which is probably the most crucial part of the economics of all the government. Can I start with Kun Thirachai as an economist? Perhaps you could paint to us where are we and what we need to do.
If we ask ourselves, what is the natural strength of Thailand? Well, it's not in minerals, unlike Indonesia, where they have a lot of coal and they have nickel, attracting investment like Tesla.
Population?
And also population, the domestic market. In my opinion, the model that we had used in Thailand for the last 20, 30 years successfully, and that was the model of supply chain, organizing with the countries in this region, each producing parts, and then for final assembly somewhere for export to the Western markets mainly. This is going to change. First, the trend is now going towards deglobalization. This is very clearly. But not only deglobalization, Janet Yellen, the Secretary of Treasury of the US, is using the term not reshoring, not offshoring, but she's saying it's friendshoring. So we are going to see, the linkage between international politics. You are in our camp, or you are in somebody else's camp. Then it will affect how much we will open the door for capital flows, for listing, like we are seeing now, the problems about Chinese company listing in New York, for acquiring technology in computer chips. So I believe that we have to perhaps move away from the model of supply chain that concentrate on serving the Western markets. And I see the trend moving more towards perhaps a supply chain of a different sort, a supply chain that concentrates more on the regional markets, on markets in Indochina, or domestic markets in various countries, which will appeal, which will demand different types of products and different types of investors than previously. Perhaps we will need fewer investors from the West, but more from China, or more from the regional countries. But I strongly believe that we still have particular strengths in certain things that should be built upon. The first is our strength in agriculture. It's in our blood. And we could see that Thai farmers had been very successful in cross-pollinating and developing fruits and products and produce that taste better, yield better, better looking, and makes Thai products more able to command higher price in this area. The second point, I think, is tourism. Here the strength lies not only in the scenic beauty of Thailand, but very much so in the behavior, in the habit of the Thai people. People feel relaxed to come here. So if we can concentrate on making Thailand the center for having good food, for having good wine, for easy shopping, and even perhaps going the model of Dubai in trying to organize various exhibitions and fairs that have relation to Thailand. I think that would be a good niche. But perhaps for the very, very long term advantage, I think it's the position of Thailand at the center of this new Silk Road. I had been to various countries in the Middle East, and I could see that the cities, that became caravanserais, where the trade routes between Asia and Europe, where they rest, had always been very rich. And here, I could see that Thailand has China, with over 1 billion people in the north, India with over 1 billion people in the west, and in the next 50 years, both countries will have greater buying power. They will demand better goods, more tasty food, and up to now, for 5,000 years, they had not been able to trade with each other over the Himalaya. So if we can develop a deep sea port, on the Andaman and link by rail, to Kunming and that area, I think we could certainly have business people in Thailand who are both Indian and both Chinese, perhaps be able to link these two economies together, and this will be something that we can rely on for many, many more years.
We have another economist here, Kun Varawut, please. On the competitiveness. Kun Veerayooth ครับ
Competitiveness, I think the devil is in the detail. If we look closely at the competitiveness report of Thailand, Thailand's strengths, first, the R&D expenditure by business. Second, the high-tech export, the ratio of high-tech export. Third, intellectual property payments. These are the 3 strengths of Thailand competitiveness. The weaknesses, first, the cost of redundancy dismissal. Second, expenditure on education. Third, The pupil-teacher ratio. Do you spot something? All the Thailand's weaknesses lie in the state. So the Thai state itself is in a fix and needs to be fixed. So if we want to address the Thailand competitiveness more properly, we need to fix the state. So the Move Forward Party proposed three major things. First, we proposed all the government data to be open data by default. Now it's closed by default. You need to ask permission to be open. We propose to make it open by default, only for some exceptions and conditions that we close it. Second, we propose the budgetary reform, because as many of you know, we do the year by year with the very same own projects. So on the one hand, we want to make some projects more zero-based that need to rethink again. Look at the COVID. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the budgetary couldn't get things done because it's strict to the own previous years. On the other hand, we want to make some project more longer term in order to make it accomplished. And third, we also learn from the European Union. So we propose the leniency program. The leniency program is the incentive that we give to those who participate in a cartel or in a corruptions. If they come out to discourse, they would get some reductions of the punishment. That's the European Union did and have a very successful record. So we propose the open data, budgetary reform, and leniency program, among the others, because we know that competitiveness, the problem of Thailand, lies in the state.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
I sorry I can't sit quiet for too long. That's why I had to ask to speak. I think everyone agrees that Thailand, we have the natural resources. We have the fish in the sea. We have the rice in the field. We have the human capital. We have everything. But the one important thing that is standing against our progress is government bureaucracy, Rabob Rachakan. I will give you two examples. If I were to open a hotel, and I want to have a restaurant, a spa, a gym in that hotel, I would have to get licensing from the government. And the government have this system called one-stop service, which means that I will have to make one stop at this agency, 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 at least 6 stops, which also means I have to pay under the table 6 times. If I want to get my license in 1 month, if I don't pay, I might have to wait a year. That's one example. That's reality. Anyone who ever done business in Thailand understands this. Another example. International movies love to make Thailand its locations. We are a beautiful country. I remember the beach, Leonardo DiCaprio. Anyone remember? Came to film in Thailand. My brother worked on that set. He was assistant to Leonardo. He got paid 80,000 baht per week. At the time I taught at the university, my salary was 9,000 baht per month. I really hated life at that time. But in any case, we are a desirable location for filming. But we are losing that edge. Here's why. Film coming to Thailand to film. We have an incentive, 30% tax rebate. Wonderful. Australia also have an incentive, 40% tax rebate. Not that much different. But in Thailand, once you wrap up your production, you may get your rebate back a year and a half later. For Australia, after you're done, you get your rebate back 6 weeks. Full 40%. Back to Thailand, you get it a year and a half later, but you never get more than 20%. Because the mentality of the Thai bureaucracy will find mistake in everything in order not to pay. Name spelled wrong, missing a number. Here and there you go, 10% gone. Gone where? Well, Tang Thon. So, we have all the capacities. We just don't have the bureaucracy. So what Chat Pattana proposed is to revolutionize the government system using an application called GovTech, recommended by World Bank. Look at Estonia, a small country broke off from the Soviet Union. They digitized their government. They became a model of government in Europe. We can do the same. It's a matter of technology. From that, we can form a system called Rathaban Nang Kam Khaw, one request government, meaning that instead of having to run to 6 different agencies, you go to one place to get your license for whatever it is that you want to do. So that at least you have to pay, you pay one person. Now, to wrap all those things up, I was a journalist in the English language media before this. So I'm very familiar with foreign investors and diplomats. And they would tell you the same thing, and I will tell you right now what they have been telling me. It's no different from what Thai people are saying. One, there are so many hands, we don't know which one to pay. Two, we never know who's in charge. We will be sitting at a table with a group of people. Next week, those people are gone. They don't pick up the phone. They don't answer line chat. Where are they? It's the inefficiency, ineffectiveness of a government bureaucracy that is a relic of the Cold War. And that is the reform that we must do. Thank you.
Can I ask Kun Varawut, because you're in government and you have to face all this bureaucracy, also big case of corruption and so on. Why is it so hard to manage bureaucracy?
I do agree with our colleague here who just mentioned about our red tapes and all these bureaucracy. For Thai Pattana, we believe if we have an opportunity, we would revolutionize our government using DDT, not the pesticide, of course. It's deregulation, digitization, and technology. By removing all these red tapes, we need to deregulate, because all these regulations enables various group of people or various tables to collect those unlawful payments and make it longer, losing our competitiveness. I mean, Thailand has the abundant resources of literally everything. I mean, the UN has proven that Thailand is one of the richest country with richest biodiversified country. We have only about 1% of the land mass compared to the whole world, but here we have about 10% of the global biodiversity in Thailand. So we have the richness in everything. We have the opportunity to, we have our hospitality for tourism. But yet, then we need to remind ourselves that let's not go back to the old tourism way, where we have millions of people, and then our Maya beach got wrecked. I mean, the beach was a good example. Unfortunately, afterwards, it was totally wrecked, and we had to shut it down for about 5 years, and it has recently been opened at the beginning of last year. So we have to do, I think the word sustainable is a key from now on, but in order to remove all the red tapes, we need to streamline the government. We need to remove all the obstacles, and hence that's why we think DDT is the answer. We use technology, we use blockchain to come up with all these paperworks. We have the bills regarding the electronic signature. So why do I, as a minister, need to sign a paper from the permanent secretary, from the director general, which takes weeks? Sometimes an invitation took me 2 months. I mean, it took 2 months to get to me. And when I received the invitation, it was for last week. So I think by deregulate and by digitize it, using, everything in an application, it can be done within a day, expedite things and remove the opportunities for corruption and increase the efficiency of our government.
So the biggest thing you need is a political leadership in this, correct?
Oh yeah, let me be one, and I'll show you how to do it.
Okay, all right. Okay, we have lots of topics to cover, so I try to cut short some of the things that we have talked. But I think everybody, I would like to ask first on CPTPP. To join, or yes or no?
I have a lot to say about the last question. I was not given the opportunity yet.
Okay,
is that a sanction? Okay. I think, are we losing competitiveness? Yes, we're not losing, but we're not running fast enough when others are running very fast. okay? Some of them from the coup. Some of them is because of our own doing. We're not fast enough, we're not visionary enough. When I said about the coup, I mean it. I started Thailand EU FTA. Framework was already approved by the parliament, both sides. And it has to stop because we had a coup. Had we continued without the coup, we would have been ahead of Vietnam in terms of number of countries that, had the free trade agreements. We're now 13 agreements, 18 countries. Vietnam is about the same agreements, but more countries, 54 countries. It took us 4 years to get back on track on the Thai-EU FTA. Now it started. But it's much more complicated, okay? That's one. Second one is that we need new ideas, we need fresh ideas. We have to be good from now on because we're really good at it. And we can only be good because we invest on R&D. The program of Democrat Party is in 4 years, we have to reach 3% of GDP. If you want to know which project, I'm not going to disclose here, it would be copied by others. I already negotiate with the R&D players of the world, and they said they will come if we have the opportunity to launch this very special campaign, okay? I have its designed and discussed. At least with the pharma group, you can check with them, okay? Now, we have the opportunity, although the world is a mess, trade war, geopolitics, but in itself, if we're smart enough, we see the opportunity. Supply chain is reorganizing itself, and Thailand has very good strength in many areas, not all areas, but we must be able to identify and work strategically on that specific area. In food, there's no doubt we're very strong at food. The Democrat Party has planned for special economic zones, already designed for 55 provinces out of 77. We'll have zone for rubber, we have zone for tapioca, we have zone for palm. We also can design special economic zones for BCG tourism industries. Yeah, okay. So border trade, it can be different kind of economic zones. And that will help us leapfrog into the future of competitiveness. And we need new tools. Bureaucratic reform has to be done. I agree, but not all the things that you have experienced. I feel so sorry for you. I work in business. When I was the Deputy Prime Minister, I have a committee working with all the foreign chambers of commerce. And I did not hear that story, but that's okay. I feel sorry for you. We had to do the reform. That's clear. It has to be done. The tax, domestic tax, all tax has to be reformed. For the moment, we still have to pay import duties on some items that we use as raw materials or semi-finished goods, and that's not good. That's bad, okay? So a lot of programs, if Democrat Party has the opportunity to be the ruling party, will do all that.
CPTPP to join? Yes or no? That's it, I think. Yes, you don't.
You all like very short answer to a very complicated question. Yeah. I suggest to you go look at the website of Parliament. I chair the subcommittee on CPTPP. 2 parts. We should join, yes. But there are 2 things in CPTPP which the current member cannot even do, cannot even comply. That is UPOF on seeds and extended IP, that is for major companies in the US during TPP time. I have already spoken to Australia, to New Zealand, to Japan, to even China, that if we put UPOF, which is about the research of seeds, and extended IP as built-in agendas, Thailand can join tomorrow. Okay?
All right. Voranai. Yes or no, CPTPP?
Life is never that simple. I would say renegotiate for more interest towards Thailand, and then it's a yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thirachai,ครับ.
I very much doubt whether we can bend the negotiation our way. And the way I see it, this is of course personally, the way I see it, the benefits will accrue towards foreign investment, towards export, and towards the people who are already able to help themselves. Unfortunately, the problems will occur at the level of the farmers, particularly those who use repeated seeds. So personally, I do not support CPTPP, and I believe negotiations with the FTAs will be a better venue forward.
Well, short answer, yes, in the fullness of time. The longer answer, taking Kun Kiat's reference earlier about foreign policy, those countries who's trying to push for the CPTPP the hardest are the countries that will gain the most benefit from it. I mean, Thailand must not fail to catch on that trend, but in order to gain maximum benefit from the CPTPP, we have to be able to protect our people, especially, namely, our farmers. The UPOF is one of the key elements. If we do join now without the proper element of preparations of the registration of all the paddy seedlings, all the R&Ds and everything, we will lose all the leading edge in our rice industries. Now, if that happens, CPTPP is going to be a catastrophe for our country. But if we do prepare our farmers, our even the medical side and other factors, if we have the relevant preparation, then we do join. That will maximize the benefit of our country.
Tidarat.
I think only if we gain more out of CPTPP. I think a lot of people have said, UPOF, seeds, and even drugs patents in which Thailand still lose, and we still have the interest to protect the best interests of our people. But it has also become extremely, extremely politicized recently. How the US has left CPTPP. The very original conversation we had was when the US was still in the CPTPP. Now the US has set up the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, and now we have joined RCEP. There are many more other associations and groups and allies that we have. So if we stand to gain more, I think for sure, but for now we don't see that yet. Thank you.
Currently, the CPTPP got the 11 countries as members, but Thailand already has signed somehow of the trade negotiation with 9 of them. So there are only 2 left, Canada and Mexico, that we haven't reached any conclusion yet. So the marginal benefit is not that big at the moment. And I think in addition to the seeding controversies, there are another thing that the Move Forward Party is concerned is the offset policy. If we join the CPTPP, we cannot do the so-called offset policy. That is the thing that if the government procurement and there's a foreign supplier joy and got the benefit, we would ask them to provide some technology transfer, as same as in Malaysia, perform very well on this front. So we are also concerned with the seeding controversies and the offset policies.
Okay. We have 15 minutes left. I have a few more questions. Perhaps I could have to cut it short. Life is not that easy.
Never.
Yeah, never. Can I ask Kun Veerayooth on the monopolies? We seem to have become a country that promoting big businesses. Now we have oligopolies in retail, in telecom, in what's the other one? Infrastructure, energy. What is happening? How do you see? Are we this by design, or it's something that is neglected? The law are not being practiced, and we have any monopoly law is not being applied. How do you unravel this as a party?
I think to a large extent it's by design of the regulations. Because, for example, according to the regulation we have, we cannot take the state-owned enterprises into account. But as you know, these days, it's the Thai state-owned enterprise, the big one, that got into the market, the domestic market, and competing with the small and medium enterprises. So some of the designs we need to fix it. So first is that we need to bring the state-owned enterprises back into account. Second is the selection process, because currently the committee members is quite problematic in terms of the role of the Senate and so on. We need to bring more, say, people-centered approach to the selection process. And it's also about the definition, because the market currently is quite complicated. For example, the retail, if you don't have the best of knowledge about how the retail market works in both the analog and digital worlds, you cannot say that they are the monopolies. Because they would say that all the shop house, can be counted as part of the retail. So, but we need an updated versions of the knowledge of the markets. So, needless to say, the platform economy, that would be the big issue next. So we need this to be the knowledge center again, to understand each market better than what we have now. So bring the state-owned enterprise back in, the selection process, and then the details of the regulations. All these things need to get things done.
So it doesn't seem difficult to manage.
I mean, if the voters see this as a problem and vote for the move forward parties, it could be done.
Okay, all right, thank you. Kun Tidarat, there's a question we haven't asked on Myanmar. What should be the policy? Myanmar now is in the midst of a civil war, basically. A lot of atrocity, a lot of things are happening there, but it's our neighbors with 2,400 kilometers of border lines. And you're half Myanmar, half Thai. If you have a chance to frame foreign policy, what would you do?
This is definitely something that I hold very dear to my heart. My father was a Burmese refugee 60 years ago. He has said that the situation has not changed, and maybe it's up to this generation to change the situation. He hasn't been back since. I think what Thailand is doing is not enough. If you look at all the regional and global conferences, all the big ones that's been happening in the past year, whether being the ASEAN for sure in Cambodia, we have G20 meeting in Indonesia, we have APEC meeting in Bangkok, Thailand. All these questions have been raised a lot because we are now in this particular region, and Myanmar, the challenges, what's happening there has been asked a lot. But Thailand is not doing enough. By pushing for a 5-point consensus, I think only one has been reached in terms of how we can help the people in Myanmar, but it's still not enough. There's still those who are suffering, there's still those who need help. I think Thailand, first of all, has to be very, very clear in terms of how they would like to help Myanmar. Sadly, all the burden of proximity, we are here, they're our neighbor, we still have to help them a lot. But not in a way that they only negotiate with the Burmese government, with the military government. You may need to apply some pressure in order to achieve the humanitarian basis, because the people come before the government that's not elected by the people. So I think, going back to the principle that I proposed earlier in terms of firstly the humanitarian basis, I think that should be the first and foremost principle that you need to hold dear to your heart. And Thailand has to practice it too.
You could get one to add, as give your experience.
Can I say just a few words on Trade Competition Act?
Okay.
We can do better.
Okay.
SOE that competes with private sector should not be exempted, but not all SOEs. Okay? Especially, to be just blunt, PTT should not be exempted. Okay? At this point. If it's not exempted, we can control them better. But even without that, we can control them better because we own more than 50% through Ministry of Finance. Okay? Now, Myanmar. I work a lot on these things. I work with the Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats as well, and Liberal International. What the leadership in Myanmar has done by executing some members of a political party, execute them, put them to death. It's unacceptable. They went beyond acceptable line, okay? And ASEAN must do more. The whole world community must do more. But to expect results, you should hit the spot, basically. I think without China being party, I think China also has changed their position in recent months following the execution of political prisoners, okay? So I think we must step up. The whole world community must step up, but wisely, not just without direction, not just condemning and making statements. It's not working. We must put pressure through major countries like China and Russia.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, good.
If I may just add on to the question about monopoly, because Pattana is an economic party, so this is where our heart and soul is at. To answer that question, if we look at South Korea, its economy used to be dominated by family business called chaebol. But since the past 20, 30 years, there have been many reforms. And today, the South Korean economy is pretty much divided between 50% big capitalists, 50% SMEs. Thailand, on the other hand, right now we are 70% big capitalists, 30% SMEs. And most of our SMEs are not even small or medium. They are micro, mini. That's the problem. Now, if you are to plant the Thai flag in the future and say we're going to have to be a developed economy, this is not the way to do it. The pathway to development is equity, meaning that the big capitalists and the SMEs both have to be able to grow. There needs to be equity. And that's why the policy of Pattana is to create that equity, opportunities for SMEs to grow, for them to be able to have more funding, more access to funding, for them to be able to have policies that support the growth of SMEs. I'm not going to go through each policies, there will be a lot, but that's pretty much the overall vision of what needs to be done if our goal is to become a developed economy. Otherwise, if we stay the same as we are, then we will continue to have the problem we're having with the #1 richest person in Thailand, Forbes magazine, making all the money, while all of us looking at electricity bill, sweating, crying, raising our hands to the gods, and ask why. This is a system, economic system, that we have to not just reform, but dismantle, tear it up completely, and create equity in a free market that is also fair for everybody. Thank you.
Thirachai, a quick question on high personal debt. Is there a quick, easy solution to this at all?
The best solution to household debt is to ensure that the economy grows and the opportunities for households to find employment, to have additional income is present. And in this respect, our party has announced the policy of allowing people to set up solar cell on their rooftops, and they'll be able to sell electricity to the government at the same price as they buy. This will be a big change. We are also advocating for the district to be able to invest and set up a solar farm, and with the same principle, allowing the people to generate income from electricity. This will put money into their pockets right away, and this obviously will help solve the problem to some extent. We have also come up with a policy of giving additional funds, 30,000 baht per family for the 8 million farming family in order to solve their debt problems. I think that should help.
Good worry. Quick question on green economy. Can we become a world competitive country in green economy?
No, I truly believe so. In the past 4 years, as a Minister of Natural Resources and Environment, I have personally pushed the entire government to make sure that the BCG economic model is actually in implementation. And I think as a result, over the past 11 months, I think I've been giving out almost 50 keynote speeches, and as a result, I think we see our private sectors moving forward in terms of green economy, in terms of the implementing the ESG, the environmental, social, and governance, and improving the economic model towards the greener side. You know, at the beginning of this year, the World Economic Forum, Bill Gates mentioned that the next world trillionaire is going to emerge from the climate tech side. It goes to say that from now on, especially after COVID-19, mankind can no longer conduct businesses the way we used to. We have to move it into a more sustainable way. Now, all the major investment capitals, international funds, they no longer look at just the word profitability alone when they're going to invest. They're looking at people. They're looking at inclusivity. The productions within the companies is being shifted now from wild, W-I-L-D, to click, C-L-I-C. W-I-L-D stands for the wasteful. Idle is like standing, doing nothing. Lopsided, you think only one side about profitability, and D is for dirty. It's being shifted from wild to click, to C as in circular, biocircular green economy, for example. L is lean. All the production lines is not needed, we cut it out. I is inclusive. It has to include all the social factors when you are in businesses. And the last C is for clean. Everything has to be clean. So the fundamental values of Thai businesses is being shifted towards a more sustainable manner. And as one of our major policy, our Thai Pattana's party's policy is to set up a Asia-Pacific Regional Carbon Credit Center. And Thailand is better than anyone in creating such a model in Thailand. We can sell and buy carbon credits in Thailand, even amongst domestically as well as internationally. So I have no doubt that Thailand can go towards a green economy, not just economy, but also in green agriculture, green tourism, and as a result, Thailand would have to move towards a sustainable economy. It's not an option, it's not a choice, but it's a matter of survival in the long run.
Thank you, thank you. We have questions? Yes, please.
Distinguished speaker, my name is Thaiwan. I'm a NIDA alumni, and I'm the founder of Better Thailand Project. I've been waiting to speak this on behalf of more than 1/3 of our population who has no internet. I heard the distinguished speaker talking about technologies, talking about blockchain, talking about Estonia. I want to hear the policy of how soon Thailand can have the free internet like Estonia, and whether or not how the digital divide can be resolved. I don't want to hear personally about CPTPP or about anything if we're going to go out about, sorry, Tidarat, about Myanmar. I want to know how our students don't have to go to the one place, sitting together, 20 people to get the internet to learn. And one family have only one phone, but they have 4 children to learn on the internet. I want to hear this, please. Thank you.
If you look at Democrat Party platform, we already announced 1 million free internet and free where those who do not have access yet, and also all schools. It's clear.
Well, for Thai Pattana, we didn't specifically mention about the internet coverage because at the moment, I think we have one of the best, well, cellular coverage in the world. But for Thai Pattana, we do stress on reducing the gap between the local authorities, the local administration. At the moment, the investment budget in some of the local authorities, we're talking about hundreds of thousands baht, 400,000, 300,000. Compared to some other local authorities, we have billions or hundreds of millions. So our policy is to make sure that each and every single one of those local authorities or administration have at least 10 million baht of investment budget so that they can invest in infrastructure that is relevant to the people, to suit people's need, be it road, electricity, telephone, internet coverage, or whatever is the need of the people in that area. So I think they would know best what they need first, and by giving them enough investment seeds, I think that would resolve the problem of the internet coverage and make sure that all the children wouldn't have to gather around just one phone to get an internet access.
Thank you very much for a Better Thailand project. I heard about the project a lot, and I really admire the work that you've been doing. I truly understand the struggle that you have mentioned. I myself, started my school in Chiang Rai, in the border of Thailand and Myanmar. A lot of my relatives now, a lot of my grandchildren now still, do not have grandnephews, and grandnieces still do not have access to internet. And I also experienced it firsthand when during COVID, where I went out to help a lot of students who, as you mentioned, some families are living day by day. A mother or father only had one phone, and they cannot allocate a smartphone to students to study online. What Thai Sang Thai proposes is we want to provide free education for all, and coming along with that, we need to also provide quality education for our students, meaning that eventually you need to teach online, you need to be able to get the teachers who are the best teachers of the best to provide online education to the students who are now in Mae Soi, which is the hometown of my father in Chiang Rai. So I truly understand that. But for sure, to set up the infrastructure, as many people have said, it takes time. But I think what you can do in the meantime is to gather the students into the village center and have one Wi-Fi hotspot for them to use the internet first while we're still trying to set up the infrastructure. I think so that's in the short run, that could be a solution that we can provide. Thank you.
Well, Palang Pracharath together, I think with most parties want to provide free internet. But on a personal basis, I wish to perhaps throw up an idea that in the future, when the government organize bidding for telecommunication, perhaps we should turn things upside down. Instead of selecting, winners as to which company, the highest bidder. Instead, let them set the lowest. The lowest rate that they will charge, and the people that set the rate that is lowest will win. I think that will be something different.
Okay. Any more questions? Please, Chen.
Hi, my name is Pangpon Rakamnoikit. I'm from the Faculty of Political Science, Chulalongkorn University. I don't know if it's about foreign policy or not, but I think that this is a very, very simple question for you. A lot of policy from many different parties will spend a lot of money. And I think that the answer that you answered this young lady is very relevant because the burden will be on the future generation. I want every party to answer, how are you going to find all those money? And I think the money will be the burden for the younger generation. It's not about maturity anymore. I think it's about responsibility and accountability.
Okay.
For Democrat Party, listen very carefully. We already made a press release, announced it. We will bring in 1 trillion baht from existing loopholes where is already allocated, not used, to stimulate the economy. Okay? If you want details, it will take time. Okay. But 1 trillion without borrowing, without having to allocate from the budget.
This is off books.
It's in the book, but not well used.
Okay.
Okay? we have one program ขจัดความยากจนท้องถิ่น if you I don't know in English but it's to reduce poverty. The money has been allocated, it's never been spent. We bring back all of this. We unlock some of the KBK and Provident Fund, about 30%. So you own the money, you can use the money to finance your house. These are all the programs, 300 billion for SMEs. It's all 1 trillion without having to worry about the budget. At best, 200 billion from the budget, from the growth of more than 5% of GDP.
Two issues. I've been a politician for a little over a year. Before that, for over 20 years, I was a journalist. And let me tell you, as a journalist, there is no campaign promises I have not heard of before. 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And that's the ugly reality of politics. That is what we have to accept. Second issue is spending money. If we are to take all the populist policies of every political party, put them all in a calculator, add them all up, divide them by 66 million, and give each batch to each individual Thai, we would all be rich. We would all be millionaire. We would all go to bed with a smile. And then we would all wake up in a sweat, finding out that the entire country is bankrupt. Chat Pattana Kla, we don't give money. We don't give away money. What we will do is reform the economic system so that you will have access to money, so that you will have opportunities and the tools necessary to compete. For example, reform the credit system. Use credit scoring rather than a backlist bureau so that everybody can have access to loans with lower interest rate. Banks will have to compete with low interest rates. But the situation today is banks will give loans to the big capitalists, but not to the SMEs. SMEs have to go to loan sharks, หนี้นอกระบบ paying interest 20% per month. That's ridiculous, that's impossible, and that is why 5.5 million Thais are stuck in this hellhole. So I'm not going to give you money, but I'm going to create a situation where other people, banks, will have to lend you money. We will also decrease your cost, energy sector, but every party talks about that already, so I'm not going to go there. And then, just a little bit more. Reform the tax system. Everyone talks about young generation. Everyone has policy for the young generation. Well, our policy for the young generation is people with 40,000 baht per month salary. That will be most of the young generation too anyway. You don't have to pay income tax. Why? Why that burden? You're not ready to have that burden. You need to be free in order to work, in order to compete. And then we're going to make money. Our economic policy will earn Thailand 5 trillion baht over the next 5 years through what we call spectrum economy. I'm not going to go through all of them. And again, just one last thing. All of these will be impossible if we do not reform the bureaucracy. And so we go back to รื้อระบบราชการ GovTech, one request government รัฐบาลหนึ่งคำขอ Thank you. คุณธีรชัย
Well, I have to admit my party gives a lot. But you have to look at the trend of the Thai society that is now demanding the society to look after the poor, the weak, better than before. I think this trend is unmistakable and it will remain. The problem is how do we finance it? Obviously, if we can reallocate from other budget source, that's pretty good, but pretty difficult also, because a lot of the budget items are government salaries. The second way is, of course, to reform the tax system. And here I'm looking at perhaps even having 2 rates in the value-added tax. A lower rate for the general consumption, but a higher rate for luxury goods, for example. And perhaps we need to get people who drive these supercars, the expensive supercars, to pay more in order to put money into the kitty for the government to use. But perhaps more importantly, we have to reform the attitude of the present government in allowing people to escape paying taxes. For example, having land considered to be agriculture right in the heart of Bangkok and major towns, allowing land ownership, which was previously in the name of one person, to be split into various entities, companies set up. All this will need to be reformed. And I think, obviously, if we can make this generation pay for itself more, the burden will pass on to the next generation less.
Well, as for Thirachai Pattana Party, we believe there's no such thing as free lunch. We don't like freebies. There's no such thing as free, except if it's from your parents. And we believe in giving rods instead of the fishing rod instead of giving the fish. We believe in providing the means and not the ends. So that's why out of all our political policies, I think our party is one of the parties that give out the least. We hardly give out anything. We believe in that if we're going to spend the government's budget, every single baht, every single stang spent, it has to be returned. There has to be returned at least twice or 3 times. For example, one of our policy is to give out the rice seedlings for all 60 million of paddy areas in Thailand. Now that is spending money in order to reduce the cost of our farmers so that they could have more money in their wallet and then they could spend more. And for example, in the future, our tax money, there's only a handful of people in Thailand paying taxes out of 66 million people. As for our policy, well, from now on, we would like to see when we pay tax, we can choose what we want to do with our tax. For example, I want to make sure that my tax money go to education, goes to sports, goes to agricultural development, for example, so that it will not be a burden for the future generations. A good policy is a policy that solves a problem today and tomorrow and in the future, not leaving behind a trail of breadcrumbs towards the destruction or towards the huge debt for our future generations. I've got 3 kids of my own. I do not wish to see them paying debts of some irresponsible policies that some people are making today. I'm not accusing anyone, but it's just that our party is hardly giving out anything. It's probably why we don't get to be on too many polls, unfortunately.
Exactly.
I think it's actually very simple. Firstly, you start, avoiding taking out so much loan, just like the current government does. This is the first thing you have to do. And secondly, there are a lot of budget that you can actually cut. Unnecessary budget allocated to military, for example. We're not at war. I think many parties have, advocated this. And thirdly, I think, you can reallocate a lot of budget to be used, to be spent a little bit more wisely. There are actually many ministries allocated budget to build more buildings. And this is a post-COVID work from home, online era in which we don't need more buildings. We actually need to utilize the spaces that we have. But lastly, I think most importantly, we need to be able to bring in the money from elsewhere. This is where it gets a little bit creative. That's why we say we need to bring in the money from the things that Thailand is already good at, in the areas of industries like food, like healthcare, like tourism. But we also propose as Thai Sang Thai Party that we are in a very strategic location to really conduct an in-depth study to construct Thai Canal or Klong Thai. We're the only party proposed it, and we think we have a great potential in bringing the money to build an international economic free zone. We think by doing this, there will be a great chance for the new government to be able to save money and to not leave the burden to the next generation.
I
think economy-wise, I think Thailand faced the twin problems of, on the one hand, the inequalities, and on the other hand, the growth slowdown. So I think we have to fix them together. Otherwise, it would be lopsided and we not have enough the size of the cake to be divided. Of course, to reduce the inequalities, we need some change in the tax reforms and land reform. I think one of the key that the Move Forward Party try to propose is the land reform, the military reforms. All these things can be relocated. But more specifically, if we look into the details of inequalities, the issue of poverty, aging society, landlessness, all these things lies in the agricultural sectors. So I think to make it more straightforward, we need to fix the agricultural sectors because currently Thailand has the relatively biggest size of agriculture in the world in terms of the ratios of the labor. According to our per capita income, we're supposed to have like a 15 or 20% of the labor in agriculture, but currently we have more than 1/3. So this is because of all the subsidies and all the policy that delay the structural transformation in Thailand. So we propose to free, to make the agricultural sectors more freedom to choose, and at the same time also create the better jobs for them to relocate to the more modern sectors of the manufacturing and the trade services. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry we ran out of time and we ran past the time that we should have ended. And I like the audience to give all our panelists here a big applause for their time, their thoughts, and not so much populist promises tonight. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, our moderators and honorable guests, for your insights on politics, foreign affairs, economics, digitization, and so much more. As we come to the closing of our event today, on behalf of NIDA, the Nation Asian News Network, I would like to express our gratitude for your participation and engagement throughout. We hope that our discussion has provided valuable insights and analysis on the topics on hand. We encourage you to share the link of our live feed with your network and social media channels to help spread the word about the event and the important discussion that took place. Finally, we wish you all a safe journey home and a wonderful weekend. Thank you again for joining us at NIDA. ขอบคุณค่ะ
The Nation and National Institute of Development Administration, or NIDA, present Thailand's General Election Debate. The only English-speaking stage for the major players to present their direction, ambition, and vision. Give the